Hey groupers, Pastor Marshall. Next step in our Core 52 study has us looking at Moses. Moses' very early life and his calling from God. As we talk about that, I wonder what are some things in your life that are tempting to manipulate and not wait on God for? As you think about that question, what could that manipulation look like in the examples you shared? So what are some things in life that it would be easy for us to try to control, manipulate, and not wait on God? And then what would be, just brainstorm, what would that look like? How would that manipulation work? And then as you're talking about that, just add to the conversation. Why is it so difficult to wait for God? Well, at the beginning of Exodus 2, we've got Jochebed, this is Moses' mom, and I wonder what you think of the idea that Jochebed set up this whole event and then God blessed it. That this was not an accident. This wasn't putting the basket in the river and it just floated down the river and luckily it landed in Pharaoh's daughter's courtyard. I suggest to you that all of this was set up by her and then God blessed it. What do you think of that idea? What are areas of our lives where we prepare or we plan and then we rely on God to bless us? We rely on God to finish it. Do you think that this is right and best for us to plan and prepare and then to trust God to finish, to bless? Or do you think that this is faithless? Should we let God just be in charge of everything? No planning, no preparing on our part, just give it all to God. What do you think about that? Well, note the meaning of Moses' name. You might have to look at the footnote to figure out what it means, but note the meaning of Moses' name and how does this turn out to be forward-thinking or prophetic? Or is it just backward thinking and historic? Well, then I want you to think about Moses' behavior when he's 40. We're done with him being born. We've now confronting one of the Egyptian slave masters. And I want you to think about his behavior and how it's different than his mom's when he was an infant. How is Moses at 40's behavior different than his mom's when he was an infant? And why would Zipporah, now we're getting into the next part of the chapter, and his wife, Zipporah, are going to be his wife, why would Zipporah and her sister why would they think that Moses was an Egyptian if he's really a Hebrew? How did they get this confusion, and is it significant to our understanding of Moses and the story? In chapter 3, in verse 1, I want you to look at how Moses responds to God's calling. He's 80. How is it different to the way that he was behaving when he was 40? So we turn the page, turn the chapter, and he's 80 and he's responding to God. How does he respond to him? And what words does he say? And how is it different from when he's 40? And then I want you to look up Genesis 22:1, and I want you to look up Genesis 31:11, and I want you to look up 1 Samuel 3:4, and I want you to look up Isaiah 6:8, and I want you to see all of these ways that people responded to God. And what do you think about this? How does this impact us as Christ followers today? Why is it that this response is so common and so appropriate, I guess is what I'm getting at. Finally, last question. How are God's instructions in chapter 3, skim down a little bit to the end of chapter 3, why are they so different from Moses' plans in chapter 2 when he's 40? God's instructions when he's 80, how are they so different from what Moses had in mind when he is 40? And why is this significant? Well, finally, just want to remind you of the application. What is something that you want to wait on God for? What is something that you want to know God's will and that you're going to wait on Him for? And what will this waiting look like? What will it require of you? Well, I hope that you have a great group, and we'll see you next week as we pick up the next section of Core 52. God bless.